My name is Michelle Padadar. I am originally from Michigan, but I've resided in Chicago for the last 22 plus years. I am a mom. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm someone that loves to travel. I'm a wife, and I'm also a 7-year cancer survivor. I first started having an inkling that something was going on. I was 32 years old. I was traveling with my friends, newly married, living my best life. Really, I didn't have many symptoms. I will say that about a year prior to my cancer diagnosis, my mom passed away from her own cancer battle. And my husband and I were her primary caregivers. So we were taking care of every day in and day out need that my mom had. She had stage 4 stomach cancer. And that ended up being just one of the most stressful situations that I've ever been put in my entire life. Her life was in her hands day to day, and I was working full time, and it was just a very stressful period. She was given 6 weeks to live. She ended up making it 6 months, and those 6 months were just so incredibly rough and tough, and obviously, as you can imagine, very hard to see your mom suffer and go through everything. So I have to preface what I was feeling with that part of my story. So about a year after she passed away, I actually just had a dream about her. And in my dream, I was talking to her. I got out of the shower and I was brushing my hair, and all my hair started falling out. And I was like, whoa, this is so weird. And I remember in my dream just feeling very unnerved, very scared. And she kind of started to lead me down a path, and I completely freaked out in my dream. I just remember feeling so terrified. And when I woke up, I felt like I pulled a muscle in my neck. It almost felt like if you have a bad dream and you're kind of clenching up and then you jerk a little bit, you can kind of kink your neck or get a pulled muscle. Well, that's what it felt like on my left side. And I was like, oh, it was just a bad dream, whatever. And I also was working out 5 days a week. So I'm like, you could attribute it to absolutely so many different things that were happening throughout that time. The pain got so much worse throughout that week. I actually ended up not really being able to move. It was horrible. I went back to Michigan for my mom's 1-year anniversary. And I just remember telling my dad, something's going on. I can't explain it. And he's like, no, you're just, you've been through a lot. Just don't worry. I'm like, no, something's going on. I know in my gut, something else is happening, etc. So I ended up making a doctor's appointment to my primary. And she was like, oh, you probably, pulled a muscle. No big deal. Let's do some preliminary blood work. And, go get a massage, take a muscle relaxer if you need it. All will be fine. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, my blood work came back a couple days later, and there was a weird elevation in a level that measures potential blood clots. And she's like, that's weird. She's like, it's not super elevated. She's like, so I'm not very concerned, but it's odd. So let's do an x-ray and just make sure that, everything's okay and clear in your lungs, etc. So I did, and they found just a massive tumor sitting in my chest, like a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter tumor sitting in my chest. And that kind of started my entire cancer journey after that. I completely broke down. I was so terrified because, of course, especially after just losing your mom to cancer, you're like, your first thought is it's cancer. And they said, we'll have to biopsy it and see what next steps are. And I remember going in for my biopsy, and they did a fine needle point biopsy. And the doctor that was overseeing it all, he made a comment to me where it was very much like, good luck. This is cancer, basically. So I kind of knew at the end of that something was not right. And I had to wait about 2 weeks until getting the biopsy report back, which was so tumultuous and horrible. And if anyone knows, that experience, it's so much anxiety, and it's so hard to pause your life, and you just don't know what's going on. You don't know what the next steps are. So it came back positive for cancer, and I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the next steps after that was to see where and if it spread and to get an oncologist. So I was very lucky. I'm in Chicago, so I was very close to Northwestern, and I was able to get a wonderful oncologist who really held my hand and walked me through the entire process. So I got a bone marrow biopsy. It did not spread to my bone marrow. They did MRIs of my brain and of other areas. Nothing spread. I did have 4 blood clots in my left arm that were attributed to the tumor pressing against my heart. It was pressing against my heart, so it was causing these 4 blood clots to go along my arm. So that's why my blood level was slightly elevated. It should have probably been more elevated. They were completely surprised. But again, I was traveling on planes, going to the Cubs World Series. Like, it was just like a crazy time. And I didn't really have any other symptoms. So it was such a shock and a surprise to me to even start that process, because I thought I just like closed my own chapter with cancer and my mom, and here I'm opening up my own. And at the time, it was like, I was so bewildered because my only experience with cancer was my mom's, and she ended up passing away. So there was such a level of fear and uncertainty that was attached to this cancer diagnosis. And I already saw her go through such a dark and hard road. So I just didn't know what was ahead of me. And it was a really scary time. The treatment plan was to get IVF done immediately, because chemo can destroy a lot of the egg supply. So they were very worried because I was so young too. So they wanted to preserve what I had, and then to undergo 6 rounds of chemotherapy. Every 2 weeks, I was in the hospital for 5 days on a continuous drip. And there were 6 rounds of that. And there was testing in between all of that as well. But that was the official chemo regimen, and that is what I did complete at the end of the day. So, and it worked. It helped me. Chemo it's no joke. I don't want to say I was lucky enough to have it so young, where my body, I feel like, could fight it off maybe a little bit better than somebody that was much older. But the side effects they're pretty hard. I had nausea, experienced nausea. And chemo is an accumulation of the medicine in your body. So as you go from round to round, it accumulates in your body. So the symptoms for me were much worse the last like 3 rounds than they were the first couple of rounds. So I experienced nausea, the battery, like metallic taste in your mouth. Nothing was appetizing whatsoever, because I was on 6 different chemo meds and on a drip for 5 days. I was so filled with fluid. It was just like so much medicine and saline going through me all at once that I just completely lost my appetite. So I ended up losing so much weight, which of course then is attached to fatigue. I was so chronically tired. Very low energy. I lost all of my hair, eyelashes, eyebrows, all of it. It was so horrible. And it was so traumatic because I was young, I'm newly married. My husband ended up having to like shave my head the day after Christmas because all my hair started coming out. And anyone can say anything about it, but like having a huge change in your physical appearance affects you. It affects you greatly. And it's also brings about a loss of identity. You lose your hair, and it's like, okay, you keep telling yourself like, it's okay, we're going to get through this. You have to be very mentally strong. And then you lose your eyebrows, and then you lose your eyelashes, and you kind of morph into a cancer patient. And it's that image that is so haunting, and you lose yourself in it because you don't recognize the person that you're looking at in the mirror anymore. And there's so many physical changes that happen with cancer, whether you're losing weight or gaining weight or whatever the case is. It's like your entire physical appearance completely has changed. And we all identify with that. And I was still working full time, and I had about 20 something employees reporting into me. So I would work from the hospital, and then I would go into the office, and I would do the wig and do the, eyebrows, and try to figure out what to do with lashes. And it just felt like I had a scarlet letter on me that was like cancer. Like, yep, you got it. And everyone knows, and everyone's looking at you no matter where you go. no matter how good the wig is and all of this, you feel like you are just so exposed, and the most vulnerable piece of you is like exposed to the entire world. And everyone's kind of like not judging you, but just noticing, and which is okay, but it affects you. We see it, we feel the energy around it. It was really, really hard. And I think it really plays a part in the loss of identity. You know, not only do we lose the physical aspects, but we're also not the same people that we are when we come out of cancer. Who we were before cancer, there's a death, you know, and maybe that's not for everybody. I don't want to speak for everybody, but for me at least, there was a death in who I was. I'm a completely different person than who I was going into treatments. I don't know who that person is anymore. And that's okay too. You know, you learn and you grow through these experiences and you come out much better on the other end. At least I feel like I did. But talk about a complete identity transformation from physical, mental, emotional. You know, you really have to get through chemo, to get through radiation or, you know, surgeries, but everyone goes through, you really have to be mentally strong. And your identity is so connected to every aspect of that. I'm currently 7 years cancer free, which is a really great place to be. Recovery is incredibly hard. I really struggled through it. I almost feel like recovery can be harder than cancer. I don't want to speak for everybody, but for myself, I very much struggled. Chemo really did a number on my body, and I think just all the medications, all the drugs that I was on, everything. I was kind of left as like a shell of who I was after cancer. And you get to ring the bell, and you're so excited. I remember saying to like my family and friends, I'm like, nobody take a picture. I don't ever want to talk about cancer ever again. I don't want to remember this chapter. Like we're done. We're closing the door to it, and that's it. And that's so far from the truth of where I am now. It's quite funny. But, you know, people think that when you ring the bell, you're just done and your journey's done and you're in remission. And it's like, yes, like I don't have to worry about anything. And it couldn't be more further from the truth. You're really put in a tailspin of anxiety. Is this going to come back? Is there a fear of reoccurrence? You know, there's a huge fear of reoccurrence. How do you deal with that, right? There's also a lot of trauma that happens. I think when we're going through treatments, we are like athletes. You know, you just concentrate on getting through each round to be able to get to ring the bell and say you're in remission and you're done and you're cured, right? Like that's it. But once you get there, you're like, didn't realize how much has happened to us mentally and emotionally, that when everything gets quiet, when all the doctors go away, because they do the second you ring the bell, the doctors are like, okay, see you again in 3 months, talk to you soon. After your hand's been held for so long, all of what you were pushing away starts to kind of come to the surface. And that's a huge part of like the loss of identity and the anxiety and not being able to sleep and just the trauma that goes along with dealing with a cancer diagnosis. So that was something that I was really experiencing, especially the first year or two after my treatments were over. And then also just the physical, right? Like the nutrition was a huge piece of that. I didn't know what to eat. I didn't know what I couldn't eat. I didn't know what would help me. I was so lost, and chemo like ruined my gut so much that I couldn't actually absorb nutrients. I would eat and it would just sit in my stomach and my body couldn't process it, couldn't break it down, and I couldn't absorb it. So I realized also that year, like, gosh, like if I want to get my energy back, if I want to start to feel better, I got to figure something out. And there just wasn't support and help, at least 7 years ago at that time, to help with the recovery piece. So that was really where I kind of struggled because my body was so broken. My heart was so broken. My mind was so broken. I just felt like, where do I even start to begin to pick up the pieces and move forward? So I feel like the last 7 years have been quite a journey for me. I ended up getting changing careers and getting certified as a integrative nutrition health coach. And now I help cancer survivors repair their body, recuperate after cancer, because that is something that I still feel like is a huge miss in our healthcare and after treatments. So that like completely changed my whole life. My whole career changed. I was very corporate. This was like a completely different thing, but I knew after cancer, like my purpose came through this. Like I just knew this is what I should be doing. I felt it in my heart. I felt it in my gut. I just really feel like that experience brought me to the other side of like finding my purpose at the end of the day, which was really great. I will say, like, I've had a few scares of reoccurrences. I've had additional testing, all of that kind of stuff, because as we get older, our body changes. And sometimes we don't even realize the damage that has done to our body until a few years after treatment. I have lymphedema in certain areas of my body. I have a lot of scar tissue, things like that, where you start to say, okay, I have to shift, I have to adjust. My body's different now. How can I best support it? So I feel like the years following my treatment, every year I've learned so much, but it's also helped me turn inward to understand what recovery really looks like. What does 7 years really look like? And it looks like being able to have tools to help with stress management, with anxiety, with fears of reoccurrence, to be able to support your body and to be able to fight off of reoccurrence as much as possible, especially in this world that we're living in that's so full of like toxic everything. Really being able to grasp on that. So as of now, I still get scanned once a year. I meet with my oncologist twice a year, and I have a neuroendocrinologist for other issues that I had prior to cancer. So I'm still being monitored pretty well. I feel comfortable with the regimen that I'm on, and continue to hopefully just move forward in this journey of recovery. But I really feel like the last 3 years have been a game changer with understanding what health is now, especially working with other cancer survivors. And, I think we all kind of struggle with a lot of similar things. And being able to help people has been so rewarding, but also be able to learn about other people's stories and processes has been just so rewarding, but also has helped me with my recovery as well. Cancer has taken so much from me. It's stolen so much of my past. I don't want it. My why is I don't want it to steal my present moment, and it doesn't deserve to have my future. And so when I have those scares come up, if I feel something, or if I have a bad scan, or if something is going on, I have to remind myself, I'm this many years out. I have certain techniques in place. I do a lot of deep breathing. Journaling is also great for when I'm dealing with like any kind of anxiety, just to get it out on the paper, just get the thoughts out of my body. It's a really great way. And I also have 2 girls now. So I'm very blessed and very lucky for that. And I want them to have a mom as they grow up. So whatever I can do to be as preventative as possible is what I do for all of my testings, for all my healthcare, for all my nutrition. Like, they are definitely my why at the end of the day. But I also really, really believe that like cancer does not deserve to take my present or my future moments, and that there's a bigger plan in place. Always trust your gut. And I would say get to know your body. We're all so different. We're all bio-individual, and we don't know why we got cancer. But what we do know is that we can take control of our health no matter where we're at in our journey, whether we are going through cancer, after cancer, or if you're looking to prevent cancer. Get to know your body, understand your blood levels, what is working with your body, what isn't, because that kind of information can be very empowering. It can help you make better decisions. It can help you tweak and change your lifestyle to support cancer, to support cancer recovery, etc. And to lean on the support around you. I think that at least every client that I've had that has gone through cancer has at least one person that is supporting them, that's by their side. Don't be afraid to lean on other people. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to take the help and the support. But getting to know your body is it's key for longevity.